Well, hello everyone, and you join us here today having a little look around on the internet to find your most asked questions for us to answer. But Tom, before we do that, do you remember the video we did about the Rolex Oyster Perpetual that had the dial that wasn't built properly?
Oh yes, yeah, double marker at 6. I mean, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Well, double marker at 6 missing, it was the single marker at 6.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, that's not too bad then.
Well, you get half of what you paid for on that marker. But nevertheless, since we posted that video, we've had a whole bunch of messages in from people with, funnily enough, the same Oyster Perpetual champagne dial with similar sort of errors. Someone who had a double marker up at 10 o'clock and someone who had poor quality print down in the lower half of the dial.
Ooh.
I don't know if that particular watch in a particular batch on a Friday afternoon just were passed under the nose of a particularly maybe unwell with COVID QC operator, but it seems like there's a few from that particular model that doesn't stand up to the usual very high quality that you expect from Rolex.
Yeah, are we sure it's not really clever marketing though? Are we definitely sure about that?
Yeah, you could be right. I reckon that Rolex is trying to undermine everything it spent a huge amount of time and money building, the quality and precision of its watches, by using a guerrilla marketing effort to tell people that its watches are actually pieces of crap.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. Dear viewer and listener, if you have recently purchased a Rolex and it has something funky going on with it, let us know. We'd like to see what the scale of the situation is. Just a few percent or perhaps more. Anyway, Tom, we've been looking on the internet to see what people have been asking about watches, and we're going to answer some of those questions. Should we just jump straight into it?
Yeah.
Fire away, Tom. What's the first question you found?
A very popular question. What watches go up in value? Now, I imagine people wanting a bit of bang for their buck and a bit of residual value. Times are tough out there. So, you want to get as much as you can out of your timepiece. So it's a good question.
That is a very, very difficult question because, well, the very strict answer is that I'm not a financial advisor and I can't predict the future.
Yeah.
It's a bit like if you were to buy shares in anything, if you were to invest, it's effectively gambling. The odds on whether or not something will go up and down aren't absolute and aren't set in stone. So which watches go up in value is a very, very delicate question. What I can say is, of course, that things like Rolex stainless steel sports, Steel Patek Nautilus, Steel Royal Oak have absolutely exploded in the last few years. But nevertheless, we are indeed seeing a little bit of softening on some of those prices. So it just goes to show that even though the trend generally is upwards with those particular watches, you cannot absolutely 100% bank on it. What I would say, if you're someone who isn't necessarily looking to play the waiting list game, buy a watch at RRP and then sell it immediately for twice the price, if you're just looking to purchase a watch that has good residuals, so you know that if in 5 years' time you come to sell it, you're not going to lose a whole lot of money and you may even make a little bit of extra, the best thing to do, and this is going to sound like a shameless plug, is to buy pre-owned. Because the depreciation is already gone, and that way you can actually explore a greater wealth of watches and buy the watch that you like the look of and not just the one that's the big hot thing at the moment.
Sure.
And a pre-owned watch, especially a discontinued one, just generally follows the upward trend of increasing RRPs. And you can be fairly safe with something like that.
Good.
Tom.
I'll take this one.
Yeah, go on. You're going to regret this. Which watch brand is best?
Rolex. Next.
You care to expand on that?
It's easy.
I mean, you're right, but there will be a lot of people who think you're wrong. So why is Rolex the best?
Well, I suppose in watch enthusiast circles, there's what's known as the Holy Trinity, what is considered the top 3 watch brands, and that's Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet and Vacheron Constantin. So those 3, have got great heritage, great watchmaking. The finishing is exquisite on those pieces. They're very, very, very high end.
Yeah.
So you could probably go with any one of those 3 and consider one of those the best. But Rolex has always long been considered a tool watch. But at the same time, it's just positioned itself so well in the market and its status has skyrocketed over time that it's just always been a very desirable piece. So if you wear a Rolex, people will probably stop you and punch you in the face and take it, or tell you what a great guy you are.
Maybe even both. But you're absolutely right. If you look at, because you could go down the route of saying like a brand like Ferdinand Berthoud makes very high-end pieces to the highest level of finishing, only 30 or so a year, the best in finishing. You could say that Seiko makes some of the best value for money.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what Rolex does is it kind of hits the trifecta. It's the most popular, so best street cred. It's the most well-known. You've got real heritage going on in there. People know all of the big things that Rolex has done that have changed the industry. And they're not cheap for sure, but at RRP you can get into a Rolex for £4,000 or £5,000, which is a lot less than you'd be looking at for a Patek or an Audemars Piguet. So it kind of does a lot of everything well.
Yeah.
So in order to be the best, it's not the best at any one thing, but it scores highest in all of the categories.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's completely subjective, but the short answer is just Rolex, isn't it?
Yeah.
Except sometimes they put their markers on wrong, but that's just clever marketing. And actually, I would add that the best watch is the one that you've already got on your wrist.
Yes, I like that. Get a new strap.
Yeah.
There you go.
See how you feel.
Oh, shoot. Next question.
Okay, another broad one. What watch should I buy?
You personally, or the royal?
What watch should I buy, Andrew? That's all the information I have.
Well, let's role play this a little bit. If you were everyone on the internet looking for a watch, and you sat down and you asked me what watch should I buy, well, first of all, I would say, what's your budget?
Yeah.
But assuming let's take an average budget. So there are some people for whom £100 is all they've got to spend. Some people who've got £100,000. I would average out between the number of people who have those different things. I would say somewhere around the £2,000 is probably going to sit somewhere in the blob.
Yep.
I'd also want to know what kind of things you like. Are you an adventurous person? Are you the kind of person who likes getting dressed up? Are you someone who is really like rugged and sporty, or do you like making a big statement? I would say for the most part, people generally tend to be like, I want to look nice, but I don't want to go too far overboard. I want something that's smart, but I don't want it to be too old-fashioned and dressy. I don't want it to be too loud either. I want something that sits like I do in this space of inoffensive.
Yeah.
I'm someone who does a bit of everything. No one really notices, but every now and then it's like, oh, that's nice. That kind of person. So I would have to say the watch that ticks all of those boxes, because I'm basically describing myself, is the Tudor Black Bay 58. That is the watch you should buy.
I wear grey t-shirts and I listen to Radiohead and I wear a Tudor.
Exactly. That's not going to be the watch for everyone, but I really do genuinely think that if you got everyone in a room and found the best watch for them, you would see the bell curve sits very much around the Tudor Black Bay 58. Great value, Rolex build quality. The markers are in the right place, so better than Rolex build quality. Great heritage as well. Lovely looks, not too big, not too small, not too smart, not too sporty. It is the Goldilocks watch. Do you agree with that? You'd probably say Casio F91. Be done with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Tom. The next question that the internet has to ask of you is, what watch did James Bond wear?
Easy. James Bond wears an Omega Seamaster, as of GoldenEye, which is when the Omega Seamaster became popular again, or maybe for the first time.
Well, you're absolutely right. The Omega Seamaster Professional, as we know it today, the 300M, became popular because of the placement in James Bond. We've seen the Planet Ocean in there. We've seen I think we've seen the Aquaterra. We've seen various iterations of the Seamaster as well.
Right, yeah.
All very, very, very smart product placement, because James Bond, as in the guy in the books, did not wear an Omega. He wore a Rolex of some description. It's believed to be...
What books? We talked about books.
I think they mean where they write the script down and bind it, perhaps.
Oh, right. You mean like the junior novelisation for kids that aren't old enough to see the film?
I think so. So yeah, in those original manuscripts, Ian Fleming, the author, described a Rolex which sounded very much like an explorer of some sort. And in fact, some of the earlier Bond films, James Bond wore a Rolex Submariner. So very, very clever product placement by Omega, back when they were really, really struggling outside of the quartz crisis, when people weren't buying mechanical watches. They were like, hey, MGM, back when you were still a thing, do you want to put this watch in, we'll pay you a load of money. And that is why James Bond does loads of adverts for Sony, because they sold out. Other watches that have been featured in the Bond movies include Breitlings and even Seikos. So there's a whole mix of stuff in there.
He also has an explosive Parker pen as well, I think.
We've got time for one more question, Tom. What's the internet got to ask for me right now?
Right, so this is a technical question which only you can answer because I don't know or care. Why do watches lose time?
That is a good question. I assume we're talking specifically about mechanical watches, because if your iPhone is losing time, then you need a new iPhone.
Sounds like there's a new iPhone being released and they've nerfed your current one.
Exactly. A watch keeps its time through a series of springs and locking wheels. It's very, very clever, very, very precise, and you can imagine also very, very sensitive. To really boil it down, in the balance spring, which is the part in the balance wheel that makes it bounce backwards and forwards, the bit that we all see and refer to as like the beating heart of a mechanical watch.
That's the most interesting bit.
It is, it's the juiciest bit. That part, that spring, you can change the length and position of it. If you change it one way or the other, it will make it beat faster and it will make it beat slower. When a watchmaker regulates a watch, if it's not performing correctly, so they can clean it, they can remove any kind of greasy friction and oldness that might be gunking it up a bit, but they can also regulate the watch with that system. What you can also have, if it's built with alloys that aren't resistant to magnetism, what can happen is you go near a speaker or like your phone or something like that, the balance springs, very, very fine, can get stuck together with magnetism, so it becomes really short, and so the watch runs really, really fast. So an old watch, gunky oils can make it run slow, or if it's been knocked and the regulation is out, that can make it run slow. If it's running fast, it could be because it needs demagnetizing, or it could just need a regulation.
Yep. Fucking magnets.
Well, there you have it. 5 questions that we found online that you guys are asking, and maybe if you like this video, we'll find some more, because there are a lot of questions. Other questions such as, which watch does Monty Don wear? Is Omega 3 good for me? Why does watched kettle never boil? So there you have it. Stay tuned for all of that goodness. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. Please do like and subscribe and click the notification bell, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.